Welcome back to the Pitwell Pod, your weekly deep dive into the fast, the fierce, and the unforgettable moments of Formula One. This week, we're heading straight to Sao Paulo for the Brazil Grand Prix 2025, where samba meets speed, rain meets drama, and every lap tells a story. From shocking overtakes to emotional podiums and a few controversies in the paddock, we've got it all covered. Grab your coffee and let's relive the madness that was the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Free practice 1. Welcome back to the Pitwell Pod. We're in Sao Paulo for the 2025 Brazil Grand Prix, and the weekend is already off to a flying start. It's advantage Lando Norris after the only practice session of the weekend topping the timesheet with a 19.975, just two hundredths of a second ahead of his McLaren teammate and title rival Oscar Piastri. Yes, the orange cars are back on top and the championship tension is as electric as ever. Behind the McLarens, it was Nico Hulkenberg with a surprise P3 for Kick Sauber, followed by Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, and hometown hero Gabriel Bortoleto rounding out the top five. A dream start for the Brazilian rookie. This session wasn't without drama. Yuki Tsunoda brought out early gaps from the crowd after losing control of his Red Bull at the Ciudad Lago, hitting the barriers but managing to limp back to the pits. Meanwhile, traffic chaos through Interlagos' twisty middle sector had drivers swimming, from George Russell to Kimi Antonelli. Speaking of Russell, he led early on before dropping to sixth, just ahead of Sainz, Hadjar, Antonelli, and Lawson. Further back, Ferrari struggled. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton finished a surprise P18 and P19, both sticking to hard tires, with Hamilton even spinning at Mugello. So as teams regroup and the clouds start to gather, all eyes are on McLaren. Can Norris convert his early pace into sprint qualifying glory, or will Piastri strike back? Sprint quali. Welcome back to the Pitwell Pod. Lando Norris has done it again, clinching pole position for Saturday's sprint at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. The McLaren driver delivered when it mattered most, stopping the clock at a 19.243, just 900ths of a second ahead of the ever impressive Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. Oscar Piastri completed the top three, making it another front-row showdown between the two McLaren title rivals. But this time a young Italian nearly stole the spotlight. It was classic Interlagos drama. Traffic and tension from start to finish. Norris set the pace. Sorry. Norris set the pace early in SQ3 with a razor-sharp banker lap, then went even quicker on his final attempt. Smooth, confident, and total in control. Behind him, Antonelli's final sector looked promising, but he couldn't quite snatch it, settling for second. Piastri had to make two with P3 after struggling to extract that final tenth, while George Russell slid into fourth to give Mercedes plenty of optimism heading into the sprint. Fernando Alonso kept Aston Martin in the fight with a strong fifth, just ahead of Max Verstappen, who was visibly frustrated as he crossed the line, shaking his head. Lance Stroll grabbed seventh for his best sprint starting slot of the season, with Charles Leclerc, Isaac Hadjar, and Nico Hulkenberg rounding out the top 10. And the big shock, Lewis Hamilton out in FQ2 in P11. The seven-time world champion not only missed the cut but faces a post-session investigation for a yellow flag infringement after Leclerc's spin. Ferrari's day went from complicated to chaotic, with both drivers battling grip and confidence throughout. Further back, Carlos Sainz endured a nightmare session, locking up and ending P20 dead last, just behind Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda. Tough day, tough track. But for McLaren, it's all smiles. Norris, cool and composed, summed it up best afterwards. It was a little bit tougher than I would have liked. Mercedes were quick, especially on softs, and it was tricky knowing how much to push. I wasn't felt quite as comfortable this weekend, so to end up fastest, yeah, that's a great result. So there you have it. Norris on the sprint pole, Antonelli right behind him, and Piastri breathing down his neck. Tomorrow the sprint promises pure fireworks. Youth versus experience, McLaren versus Mercedes, and that ever-present Red Bull threat. Sprints. In a breathtaking Sao Paulo sprint, Lando Norris delivered under pressure, winning an action-packed, rain-touched thriller to extend his championship lead over teammate Oscar Piastri, who crashed out in dramatic fashion. From pole position, Norris got the perfect launch, cool, clean, and composed, as McLaren looked set for another dominant sprint. But yet, just a few laps in, the story changed completely. Oscar Piastri hit the damn curb at turn 3 and went straight into the barriers. Behind him, Nico Hulkenberg and Franco Colapinto both slid off at the same spot, bringing out the red flag and a collective gasp for the Sao Paulo crowd. After a lengthy cleanup, the race resumed, and that's when the tension really began to rise. Nurse led the rolling restarts perfectly, but Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes was relentless, keeping the McLaren star under pressure lap after lap. As Norris' soft tires began to fade on the drying track, the young Italian closed the gap to just 4 tenths in the final laps. And just as fans braced for a final lap showdown, Gabriel Bortoleto, the local hero, suffered a heavy crash that ended a sprint under double yellow flags. Thankfully, he climbed out unhurt. Norris took the checkered flag and his third sprint win of the season, just 8 tenths of a second ahead of Antonelli, with George Russell completing an excellent day for Mercedes in third. Behind the front three, Max Verstappen salvaged P4 for Red Bull, keeping his faint title hopes alive, while Charles Leclerc grabbed P5 with a late move on Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton followed in P7, ahead of Pierre Gasly, both picking up valuable points for their teams. Lance Stroll narrowly missed out in ninth, and Isaac Hadjar ranked out top 10. The rest of the field pure chaos, spins, penalties, and pit lane starts for Tsunoda and Sainz meant plenty of movement in the midfield. With 8 sprint points in his pocket, Norris now extends his lead in the Drivers' Championship to 9 points over his unlucky teammate Piastri, who would only watch from the garage as his championship rival celebrated another victory. So McLaren takes another win, Mercedes keeps the pressure on, and Interlagos once again delivers the drama. The big question now, can Norris carry his momentum into Sunday's Grand Prix, or will Antonelli and Verstappen strike back when it counts most? And what a qualifying session it was. Lando Norris continued his remarkable run from taking pole position with a soaring 19.511, just ahead of Kimi Antonelli and Charles Leclerc. The big shock of the day, Max Verstappen, unusually untouchable in qualifying, crashed out in Q1, finishing a shocking P16. Red Bull had a nightmare, compounded by Yuki Tsunoda's P19 exit, while home hero Gabriel Bortoleto couldn't even get on track after his sprint crash. The session started with drama from the off. Four cars had crashed during the sprint, and teams scrambled to get them repaired. Q1 saw Oliver Bearman impress early with a 19.891, while Verstappen struggled for grip and couldn't improve, confirming his early exit. Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton also faced challenges. Piastri would recover later in Q3, but Hamilton was knocked out in Q2 once again, settling for P13. Q2 brought more tension. Norris reclaimed P1 with a strong lap, while Mercedes Antonelli and Russell made it through, but Hamilton, Albon, Stroll, and Sainz were all eliminated. The track was tricky, tire choices were key, and the championship contenders were under pressure. And then came Q3, top 10 shootout. Piastri went quickest initially, with Leclerc moving up to P1 briefly, but Norris had the final word. lasting in a 19.511. To reclaim pole, Antonelli repeated his strong sprint pace to slot into P2 with Leclerc in P3 and Piastri in fourth. Isaac Hadjar impressed again for Racing Bulls, taking P5, while Russell finished in P6, rounding out top 10 were Lawson, Behrman, Gasly, and Hulkenberg. So the front row is set: McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, but with Verstappen started P16 and Piastri recovering to P4, Sunday's Grand Prix promises unpredictability, drama, and championship-defining moments. Lando Norris will start from pole, Kimi Antonelli alongside him, and Charles Leclerc completes the top three. Verstappen's shock Q1 exit means he'll have a fight to fight through the pack, while Piastri will be desperate to bounce back after his sprint crash. Interlagos, as always, looks set to deliver a weekend full of heart-stopping racing. The race. Lando Norris has once again reminded everyone why he's the man to beat in 2025. The McLaren driver claimed a thrilling victory at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, extending his championship lead further, with Kimi Antonelli holding on for second and Max Verstappen completing an incredible comeback from the pit lane to third. Sunday started with a bit of drizzle in Interlagos, but thankfully most dry conditions as the grid formed up. Norris got away cleanly from pole, while chaos unfolded behind. Lewis Hamilton was tagged by Carlos Sainz and later clipped Franco Colapinto, forcing him into a long repair stop. Meanwhile, Gabriel Bortoleto crashed out on the opening lap following contact with Lance Stroll, bringing out the safety car. And then came the drama. Oscar Piastri battling hard with Antonelli locked up in turn one and hit the Mercedes, which ricocheted with Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's Ferrari was too damaged to continue, forcing him to retire. Piastri was handed a 10-second penalty, making what had been a promising race even tougher for the other McLaren. And what a charge it was! Verstappen methodically climbed the order, overtaking Hamilton, Colapinto, and others, eventually moving into third by the closing laps. Meanwhile, Norris managed his gaps expertly, switching tires strategically and maintaining composure as Antonelli pressed harder for seconds. George Russell finishing fourth after holding off a fast-closing Piastri, while the Australian had to settle for fifth after his penalty. Behind them, Ollie Behrman claimed a solid sixth, with Racing Bulls' Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar taking seventh and eighth. Nico Hulkenberg and Pierre Gasly round out the top 10, scooping valuable points for their teams. It was a nightmare weekend for Ferrari, a double DNF with Leclerc and Hamilton retiring, and for Red Bull, Verstappen salvaged the day from the pit lane while Tsunoda struggled finishing last with penalties. So, championship standings update. Norris though leads the Piastri by 24 points, with Verstappen moving up on the podium but still trailing. Mercedes leapfrogs Ferrari in Teams Championship, while McLaren's consistency keeps them in contention. Interlagos once again delivered a classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix, a mixture of skill, strategy, drama, and incredible recoveries. Norris continues to be untouchable at the top of the standings. Antonelli takes his career best P2, and Verstappen reminds everyone why he's a four-time world champion. Drivers' Championship Top 5: Lando Norris with 390 points, Oscar Piastri with 366 points, Max Verstappen with 341 points, George Russell with 276 points, and Charles Leclerc with 214 points. Teams Championship: McLaren with 756 points, Mercedes 398 points, Red Bull 366, Ferrari 362, and Williams 111 points. And that wrap from Sao Paulo. Lando Norris takes a commanding win, Kimi Antonelli scores a career best P2, and Max Verstappen pulls off an incredible podium from the pit lane. Drama, strategy, and skill, Interlagos delivered it all. After a week off, F1 will kick off the final triple header of the season with Las Vegas Grand Prix from November 20 to 22. Will Norris continue his dominance? Can Verstappen close the gap? And what surprise will the strip have in store? Stay tuned, the championship battle is far from over. This was the Pitwall Pod, and don't forget to subscribe and like for more episodes.